Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at, well, this is an interesting one, The Zen Trader by Peter Castle.
Yeah, trading and Zen philosophy. Who knew those two went together?
Right, like how do you find your center when the markets are going crazy? But that's why we're here, to dive into it.
Into the deep end. And Castle starts off strong. He connects life, trading, and suffering.
Okay, suffering. That seems a bit dramatic, doesn't it?
Well, he uses the Buddhist idea that attachment leads to suffering. And,
Yeah.
he actually taught right after that 2008 crash.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And he had students who were so shaken by it, just devastated by their losses.
I can't even imagine.
Some completely gave up on trading. Like for a decade, they wouldn't touch it.
A decade. They just stopped.
They were so fixated on those past losses that they couldn't move forward, frozen by fear.
It's like being terrified of getting burned so you never cook again. You miss out on all the good stuff.
That's the thing, isn't it? Castle even brings up Edwin Coppock, the Coppock curve guy. He noticed the same thing.
Wait, really?
He compared it to the stages of grief, like you'd experience after losing a loved one. He even talked to bishops to figure out how long that grieving process usually lasts.
So he could incorporate it into his, market analysis. Wild.
It's fascinating. But the point is, it's not just about past losses, right? It's about getting overly attached to our opinions about the market, too.
Okay. I see that.
Say you're so sure a stock is going to take off, you've done your research, you're convinced, but then it tanks.
Ouch.
And because your ego is tied to that initial analysis, you can't let it go. You hold on, even as you keep losing money.
We've all been there, right? Refusing to admit you were wrong about a movie, even when you're walking out thinking, what did I just watch?
Exactly. And this is where the Zen approach comes in. Castle says it's about recognizing that attachment and making a conscious effort to detach from it. Not becoming a robot, but just more aware.
Aware of how your emotions are playing into your decisions.
Right. Acknowledging that the market doesn't care about your desires.
You have to adapt to it, not the other way around.
Well said. And that's where mindfulness comes in. But Castle argues that just being mindful isn't enough for traders.
Oh, how so? I thought mindfulness was supposed to be, the answer to everything.
It's popular for a reason, but he uses the analogy of a trader glued to the charts, tracking every little fluctuation.
Okay. I mean, that sounds good, staying informed.
Sure, but they're missing something. They're judging every single fluctuation as good or bad, letting those judgments control their reactions.
So it's like they're so focused on the external noise, they're missing the internal storm in their own head.
Exactly. They're aware of the rain, but they forgot their umbrella.
And that's where the trouble starts. Mindfulness without detachment.
A recipe for disaster. To really understand how to detach from those thoughts, Castle introduces this idea of dualistic thinking.
I've heard that term before, but how does it apply to, buying and selling stocks?
Well, it's basically our tendency to see things as black and white, good versus bad, win versus loss. So imagine a trader who's convinced the market's going up.
Feeling good, bullish.
Then there's a dip. And instead of seeing a buying opportunity, what do? They panic. Because to them, down equals bad, loss,
Because they're stuck in that dualistic thinking.
And they miss out. Or, on the flip side, they see the market climbing and they get so caught up in winning.
Diamond hands.
Exactly. They ignore any signs of a reversal. They're blinded by that dualistic thinking. Castle argues this is so common, and it prevents traders from seeing the nuances of the market.
So how do we break free from that? From seeing everything in black and white?
Well, Castle says the key is training yourself to see things as they are, without immediately slapping a judgment on it.
That sounds incredibly hard, doesn't it? Our brains are wired to categorize everything.
It is challenging, but think of it like this. Instead of the market being this battleground, it's just the terrain. You're learning the landscape, not trying to control the weather, but navigate it.
So it's less about imposing our will on the market and more about, understanding its natural rhythm.
Now you're getting it. And to cultivate that detached, observant mindset, we need to look at the practical side of Zen.
And I'm all about actionable insights. So let's get practical. What steps can we take?
And Castle actually provides a really interesting framework. He introduces these 5 precepts.
Wait, the 5 precepts, like those ethical guidelines, isn't that getting a little preachy for a trading book?
Right, you'd think so, but he doesn't frame them as rules you have to follow, more like tools to help you think clearly.
Okay, so a calm mind leads to better trades. I can see that. Remind me, what are the precepts again?
So there's refraining from killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and intoxicating substances.
Okay. I can already see how this could go off the rails. But he brings it back to trading, right?
He does. For example, refraining from killing, he's not just talking about physical harm. He relates it to how we harm ourselves through our actions.
So a trader who beats themselves up over every little mistake or blames everyone else when a trade goes bad.
They're killing their own confidence. And it goes beyond trading, right? Our relationships, how we treat our bodies, everything.
It's about being mindful. Okay, I'm with you. But what about stealing? We're not talking about insider trading here, are we?
No, no, it's more subtle than that.
Right.
Like taking credit for someone else's trading strategy or even just, I don't know, manipulating data to make yourself look good.
Ah, okay. So taking shortcuts instead of putting in the real work, stealing from your future self.
There you go. And he goes through each precept like that. Lying becomes about being honest with yourself about your weaknesses.
No more hiding your losing trades.
Exactly. And as for sexual misconduct,
Yeah, I was wondering how he's going to tie that one in.
well, he talks about it in the context of desire and attachment, how those can cloud our judgment, especially in trading.
So like that feeling of, I have to buy this stock now, even if it doesn't fit your plan. That fear of missing out.
Exactly. Or holding on to a loser for too long because you're afraid to admit you were wrong. It's all connected.
Okay, that makes sense. And intoxicating substances. Pretty clear cut, don't trade drunk. Right.
Well, yes, but he also talks about it more broadly. Anything that clouds your judgment.
Information overload. All the news and opinions, those hot stock tips you see everywhere.
You got it. It's about finding what centers you, what keeps you grounded amidst all that noise.
So it's really about setting yourself up for success, both in trading and just life in general.
Exactly. It's about clearing out that mental clutter so you can make better decisions. And that's where the sixth element of his system comes, in meditation.
Ah, now we're getting Zen.
Right. He says meditation is key for traders. It helps you become aware of those automatic knee-jerk reactions we all have.
Instead of letting your emotions drive the bus.
Exactly. He even makes a connection to Dale Carnegie, that How to Stop Worrying guy. Remember that one?
Vaguely, yeah. It was all about using logic to overcome your worries, right?
And Castle points out that Carnegie's 4 steps for problem solving, they're actually a lot like meditation.
Okay, what were the steps again?
First, you clearly identify what's bugging you. Then you gather all the info you can about it. Then you make a decision based on that info. And finally, you commit to that decision, reassessing as needed.
That makes a lot of sense for anything, really. Making informed decisions, not emotional ones.
But here's the thing. Carnegie doesn't really address how we, as humans, tend to slip back into worrying.
We overthink, second-guess ourselves.
And that's where meditation comes in. It trains your mind to quiet those doubts, to trust the process.
Okay, I can see that. But isn't meditation all a bit mystical?
He actually brings in scientific research, studies showing how meditation can literally change your brain, strengthening areas for higher level thinking, shrinking the fear and anxiety centers.
Wow, so it's not just some woo-woo concept. There's actual evidence behind it.
Exactly. He describes it as achieving this calm alertness. Like imagine an antelope grazing in a field, peaceful, but ready to react if a predator shows up.
I like that. Present, but not freaking out. And he says it's not about emptying your mind completely, right?
He actually tells this great story, this student trying to impress his Zen master, going on and on about his inner peace, and the master whacks him with his stick and says, "You were saying."
Oh, I think I've heard that one. Classic.
It's about letting go of that need to overanalyze everything. And that's huge for traders. We often feel like we always have to be doing something, buying, selling, tweaking. But sometimes the best move is no move.
Stillness is an action, too. I like that. So we've got our ethical framework, our mental training. What about an actual system for trading? Does Castle give us something concrete?
He does. And true to the Zen theme, he keeps it super simple. He actually lays out 2 systems in the book.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
The first one he calls the I want money system.
Straight to the point. I like it. How's it work?
Basically, you're looking for stocks in a strong uptrend, and you ride that wave until the momentum fades.
Trend following. Classic. What are the signals?
First, you see if the NASDAQ 100 is above its 13-day moving average. If it is, then you look for stocks that have closed at their highest price in 20 days and are up at least 8% from 20 days ago. And you want confirmation from volume, too, making sure it's higher than it was 5 days prior.
So price movement, momentum, volume, all pointing in the same direction.
Yeah, gotcha.
How do you know when to sell?
Trailing stop loss. You set it below the stock's recent high, using the average true range to figure out where to put it.
Managing your risk. Smart. Did he say how well this I want money system actually performed?
He claims it returned 99% over 2 years.
Wow, that's impressive. And the other system?
This one's called the Zen Monthly System, and it's even simpler.
Okay, now I'm just picturing myself on a beach somewhere, checking my portfolio once a month. How simple are we talking?
You literally check the charts once a month. You buy a stock if it closes at its highest price in the past 12 months.
Interesting. So a much longer term approach.
And if multiple stocks fit the bill, you pick the cheapest one. Easy peasy.
And to exit.
Trailing stop again. This time, it's 1.5 times the average true range, calculated over 2 months.
Not bad for a system that takes like 5 minutes a month. He really walks the walk with that whole simplicity thing.
Right. It's about finding what you can actually stick with. But here's the thing. He says the perfect system isn't the point.
It's about having the right mindset to execute any system well.
Exactly. That's where the Zen really comes in. You could have the best trading plan in the world, but if your mind's all over the place...
You're going to crash and burn.
To illustrate this, he brings up Novak Djokovic.
Ooh, the tennis player. Okay, I love these little connections he makes. How does Djokovic fit in?
Well, Castle argues that while Djokovic doesn't talk about Zen specifically, he embodies a lot of the same principles, especially in how he handles pressure.
So, like Djokovic, the accidental Zen master.
Right. First of all, the guy is all about discipline and routine. His training, his diet, everything is super structured.
Minimizing those unnecessary decisions so he can focus on what matters.
And Castle also points out how good Djokovic is at detaching from the outcome. Which is crazy when you think about it. This is a guy playing in high-pressure matches.
Wimbledon finals. The whole world's watching. How do you even detach from that?
Well, Castle includes this quote from him. Djokovic says, "I work very hard every single day to not have any fears." Now, that might not be totally realistic, but he's learned to acknowledge that fear and not let it control him.
And that's where the meditation comes in. Training your mind to observe those emotions without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. And on top of all that, Djokovic still genuinely loves the game, even after all these years at the top.
That's something a lot of traders lose sight of, that passion.
It's easy to get caught up in the wins and losses. But Castle believes that by incorporating Zen, you can rediscover that joy. It's not about becoming a robot. It's about finding a balance.
Mastering your mind so you can master your trading. And it's a journey, right? Not about reaching some perfect state.
He talks about his own struggles. Even after all these years of studying this stuff, he says it's not about being perfect. It's about always striving to grow.
Speaking of journeys, doesn't he talk about actually going on retreats, like physically going somewhere to deepen your practice?
He does. He says retreats can be incredibly powerful. It's a chance to really disconnect from the daily grind.
Hit the reset button on your mind.
And he's clear that it's not about punishing yourself. It's about creating the ideal conditions for growth.
Like a training camp for your mind. You're pushing your boundaries, but in a supportive way.
And he connects it back to trading by saying you should approach the markets with that same mindset. Always be willing to learn, to adapt, embrace those challenges as opportunities for growth. He makes it clear that for him, trading isn't just about the money, it's about self-discovery.
It's about becoming a better trader by becoming a better you. I love that.
He ends the book with this really powerful message. Do your best to regularly include the 6 rules of the Buddha system in your life. These are the 5 precepts in meditation. When you lose discipline or make errors, it is all part of the path, and no one is perfect. Take a breath and come back to the system that develops calmness and peace of mind. Those are the most important qualities to have for a happy and contented life and to trade well.
It's a good reminder that we all mess up sometimes. It's about having a system to help you navigate those inevitable ups and downs.
Progress, not perfection.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into the Zen Trader, I think Castle's words really capture the heart of his message. He writes, "Trading and Zen are unique paths to follow. The paths for each of us are as diverse as our minds. I hope to see many of you on the path with me."
Inviting us all to join him on that journey of self-discovery using those Zen principles to navigate not just the markets, but life itself.
Wow. The Zen Trader really packed a lot in, didn't it?
It did. It's really interesting how he takes those ancient ideas and makes them relevant to, like, Wall Street.
Right. And I like that he doesn't say you have to go all in, become a monk or anything. He actually says that for people who are used to being in control.
The type A personalities.
Yeah, it can actually be harder for them to apply these principles.
It's like, you can't force a seed to grow, right? You have to create the right conditions and then let it happen.
It reminds me of that story Castle tells, that student asking his master, "How long until I reach enlightenment?"
And the master says 10 years.
Right. And the student's like, okay, but what if I practice really, really hard? And the master's like, then 20 years.
Because you're trying to force it. You're attached to the outcome. So much of this is about surrendering to the process.
Makes you think, where in our lives could we all benefit from a little more letting go?
Right. Whether it's trading or just life. Is it always needing to be right? That fear of missing out
Maybe it's about letting go of control over things you can't control anyway.
and focusing on what you can't control. Your reactions, your mindset.
That's a good takeaway for all of us.
It really is. And that brings us to our final thought for you, our listener. What is one area in your life where letting go a little more, that Zen way, might lead to something better?
It might feel weird at first, right? We're so programmed to think more effort equals better results.
But sometimes the key is to surrender to the moment. Trust that things will unfold as they should.
Embrace the uncertainty. Find the peace within the chaos. That's what the Zen Trader is all about.
Cultivating that calm, clear mind so you can face whatever the market or life throws at you.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Zen Trader by Peter Castle. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of Zen and trading. Until next time, may your trades be profitable and your mind be at ease.